Welcome to Film Talk Weekly Radio. This is your guest host, Castle Cersei, with the Santa Fe International Film Festival, which is happening this month, October 16th through 20th. Today, we have writer-director Paul Wagner, who has a film in our festival, Georgia O'Keeffe, The Brightness of Light. Thanks for joining us, Paul. You're in Virginia right now, right?
I am, yes. Thanks for having me, Castle.
But when this airs, I think you'll be in Santa Fe,
Oh
right?
yeah, we
Yes.
we will not miss this. This is the world premiere of George O'Keeffe, The Brightness of Light.
And there's
Uh,
no better place
so
for that
I
world
know it's like,
premiere.
how perfect is that? So
Yes.
we're really excited about it. My wife Ellen and I are coming in. We're the co-producers of the film, and I'm the writer-director. And then our kids are coming in too, so it's a little family reunion for us too.
Oh, great. And you've been to Santa Fe before?
We have, yeah. We hadn't been there prior to working on the film, and
Oh, wow.
frankly, that was like one of the benefits of making the documentary was it brought us to Santa Fe several times to work on the film. And so, yeah, we've fallen in love like everybody does. I mean, who doesn't love Santa Fe,
Yeah.
especially once you get there and experience the landscape and the people and everything about it.
It makes a lot of sense why Georgia O'Keeffe loved the Santa Fe area. And
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That was a lot of it. And working on a film about her, it just kind of plugs you in a deeper way to how she understood the land, and it just gives you kind of a deeper appreciation, maybe than you would have just as a tourist coming in.
right. And I know you visited every place that you
Yeah,
filmed, every
pretty
location
much.
that she
Pretty
lived and
much.
worked
Yeah. Well,
in the
the
country.
film actually got started in that way. We live here in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I know when you say George O'Keeffe, everybody thinks northern New Mexico, but guess
Sure.
what? George O'Keeffe lived here in Charlottesville 5 summers, 1912 to 1916, which hardly anybody knows. And even here in Charlottesville, people are like, why was George O'Keeffe here? Nobody even knows that story. And what happened was I guess it was late 2018, there was an exhibit at our little local art museum. Charlottesville, by the way, is where the University of Virginia is. And
Okay.
there's a small art museum connected with the university. And they had an exhibit about O'Keeffe's summers, 1912, 1916. And she actually attended summer classes at UVA. Of course, UVA at that time was like strictly boys only,
Right.
but in the summers, women could attend, and they offered, kind of art classes and education classes, things like that. So O'Keeffe's sisters, who she was living with, said, "Oh, there's an art class you've got to take. It's really cool." Well, the context of this was George O'Keeffe had not painted, had not picked up her paintbrush for 4 years. Since 1908, she'd gotten kind of disillusioned about the direction her art was going and just kind of lost her energy and enthusiasm. And so even when her sister said this, she's like, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to do it. And finally, she kind of grudgingly goes to this class, which was really kind of an art theory class. And it totally blew her mind. She got totally excited again about art in a whole new direction. And
Hmm.
it didn't happen right away. It was over a period of a few more years to about probably 1915, you would say. But then finally emerged the George O'Keeffe that we think we know today, the beautiful, fluid, and often abstract art, the
Right.
connection with nature, all that emerged starting with this offbeat, quirky class here in Charlottesville at UVA. So, and that got her started and energized about her art again.
So is this is where the idea sparked to create a documentary
Right. Yeah.
with
So it got
in
us
your
started.
hometown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At first we thought, oh, well, we could do a little short film about this little chapter in her life. And we researched that and started looking at it. And the more we looked at the idea of a film about O'Keeffe, we're like, you know what? there hasn't been a significant American documentary about O'Keeffe since 1977, which was a terrific film by Perry Miller Adato, who was a wonderful filmmaker. And of course, it has the great advantage, it has O'Keeffe in it. She's you know, it's basically filmed, you know, in Abiquiu and at Ghost Ranch. And it's fabulous because you've got the real O'Keeffe on camera, and nothing's better than that. But what had happened was, over the 50 years or so since 77, there had been this huge explosion of interest and research about O'Keeffe. So all these exhibits had been done, you know, hundreds of books had been written, and more importantly, 25,000 pages of letters between O'Keeffe and Alfred Stieglitz had been released to the public. So in this weird way, we're like, oh, we can't do a film about George O'Keeffe. We don't have George O'Keeffe. But in a weird way, we had something even better, in the sense that it was truer and more intimate and more revealing in these letters that were, you know, private correspondence between O'Keeffe and Stieglitz, who, of course, she was married to, you know, a fabulous, famous photographer and gallery owner and sort of promoter of American art, and particularly George O'Keeffe. So we had this resource that gave you a whole new angle on this figure that everybody thinks they know.
Right,
you know?
right.
And so we were able to kind of reveal a lot of things in this film that you wouldn't even know looking at the earlier film. And I said at the time, and I would say now, the best would be a double feature with like our film and Perry Miller Adato's film from 77, because that's sort of, then you see the public O'Keeffe and the private O'Keeffe.
That would be a great double feature. 25,000 letters?
25,000 pages of letters.
Still.
Yeah, of course, this was a different era, you know, that where people wrote letters. I mean, Stieglitz especially, some of his letters to her are like 30 and 40 pages long. And sometimes they would write each other 2 or 3 times a day. You know, where like they get up in the morning and finish a letter they started the night before, put it, you know, mail it. Then like by lunchtime, they're like, oh, I had some other ideas, and would actually send each other 2 or 3 letters a day. So it's an incredible resource, and you can really track their, well, we like to say the film is about her art and her life. They're really obviously interwoven, but you know, they're talking about art and they're talking about their personal relationship with each other and with other people. So it's a fabulous resource.
And her letters that you show in the film they're like works of art as well. Like
yeah, they are. That's a good point.
I think I'm inspired to write my letters with more expressionism when I do handwriting. You know, we don't anymore.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's really a good point. Of course, today it's like, who even hand writes a letter, you know, much less writes a letter of any kind. So that's really beautiful. But you're right, they are works of art. She was, to point out the obvious, she was an incredibly expressive person. And it wasn't just on canvas that came out. The way she spoke, the way she wrote, even though she would she actually said at one point, words are not my friends. but she was, you know, selling herself short. She was so idiosyncratic in the way she expressed herself, you know, and that comes out on the page. And even graphically, she'll start something and then do a little squiggle, then another.
Yes, I loved that. It's
kind of, a lot of it's very funny too.
Right. It makes a lot of sense to me as a fellow creative.
And gives you a sense of a personality.
Totally. Like detecting tone, like how people say you can't detect tone in text now. Like with handwriting like that, you know, it is possible.
Yes.
I love the idea of showing in museums. I was going to ask that when I saw you were at the New Mexico History Museum.
No, we're excited about that, and just feel it is wonderful to show these films in person in a theatrical, you know, with a group of people.
Yes.
You sort of, I think everybody has a, particularly filmmakers, we all have the same complaint. Yes, of course we watch films on, you know, streaming all the time. Who doesn't? But there's still nothing that beats the experience sitting in a darkened room with a group of people and watching a film, whether it's narrative or documentary. And
It is the week of the Santa Fe International Film Festival. We are here with Paul Wagner, who is the writer, director, filmmaker of Georgia O'Keeffe, The Brightness of Light, screening today at the CCA at 7:30 and tomorrow at 1 p.m. at the New Mexico History Museum, both followed by a Q&A. So you can meet the filmmaker, meet your co-producer, Ellen Casey Wagner. Yep. Yes, your wife. And I love that you two work together. It's like, Stieglitz and O'Keeffe working together.
Oh, don't make that comparison. It's too broad.
I can't. Yeah.
But there's certain truth.
Well, in a good way, in all the good ways.
Right, hopefully.
Yes. Now, how did you get these letters?
Well, they've been published.
Okay.
And in fact, one of the interviewees in the film is the woman who edited the letters. But what happened was O'Keeffe said that she gave them to Yale University, but they could not be released to the public for until 20 years after her death.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they were, just not available until the 2000s. And then a woman who's a curator at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, was given them and edited them. And so they're out, they're published and publicly available now.
Okay. And how Claire Danes is reading the letters.
Yeah, I mean, we described Claire's playing the voice of George O'Keeffe. In other words, she's not on the camera, but she does the readings of the letters and other statements. But a lot of that material is drawn from the letters with Stieglitz because they were so personal and intimate and give you a lot of insight into her relationship with Stieglitz, but also just her feelings about art.
Right.
So yeah, and Claire was fantastic. It was funny because going into it, I was sort of thinking, should she try to sound like O'Keeffe or try to get the inflection or, and I was part of the reason I was worried about it is the real O'Keeffe is in the film too. You use earlier interviews with her. And so, as a filmmaker, you're thinking, well, is this going to work to have the real George O'Keeffe on camera and then cut to a passage where you have an actress, even a good actress like Claire Danes, doing her voice? How is that, is that going to seem weird? And, I was thinking, well, maybe she should try to sound a little bit like O'Keeffe. And when I talked to her before we did the recording a week or so ahead of time, she just was like, I don't want to do that. That's I don't think that's a good idea. It's not of interest to me. And instead, she kind of brought her talent as an actress to deal with the text, just as she would any kind of dramatic script. And so she basically delivers it in her own voice. That is the voice of Claire Danes, but with tapping into the emotion and the truth of what's being said and what the text is, and therefore O'Keeffe's ideas. So I thought that was really brilliant on her part. She's a lot smarter than I am, clearly, because it works much better. And therefore, when you have passages in the film where it's the real George O'Keeffe and then it cuts right to Claire Danes, it doesn't seem weird.
It doesn't seem weird. No.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you feel that way when you?
I thought it was I agree with your choice. Because otherwise it might be an impersonation, right?
Right. And then what are you thinking about? You're thinking about, oh, she doesn't sound like, oh, it's sort of like O'Keeffe, but it's not, and that's a dead end for the viewer.
Right. Like you see the, lesser quality or I don't know, like other quality reenactments and films where it's still, it's a reenactment or an impersonation and it's too much. This is very seamless and creative, I thought, and really beautiful,
Well, in the documentary world, as you know, it's a big overarching question,
right?
How dramatized do you make things? Does it work to go scene by scene into actually reenactments? which
Mhm.
many documentaries do it and do it well. But there's a knack to it, I think. Uh,
Yes, it can get very distracting.
yeah, it can be. It can be.
And you're like,
But it's
yeah.
done all the time. And you know what? Over the years that I've been in documentary film, filmmakers have gotten a lot better at it.
Hmm.
When you look at the earlier efforts, uh, they're a
Hmm.
little funky, but basically filmmakers have gotten very good at kind of integrating dramatized scenes with, in documentary material.
Right. And how did you bring Claire Danes on the project?
Contacted our agent. We didn't have a particular in. The one kind of trick we used was um, we needed two actors. We needed a woman to play the part of George O'Keeffe, and we needed someone to be the narrator, which in our mind could have been a man or woman. We've used women narrators in a lot of our films in the past.
Hmm.
Um, but then we thought, kind of looking at possible people like Claire Danes, we realized she's married to Hugh Dancy, who is not
Okay,
as
I didn't know
famous as she
that.
is, but he's
Uh-huh.
really a terrific actor and actually pretty well known. He's British. He grew up in England, and but he can use a beautiful American accent. And
Uh-huh.
right now he's a prosecuting attorney or prosecutor on um, Law and Order.
Okay.
Yeah, on one of on the Law and Order
Hmm.
series,
Hmm.
and so he's really good. And so we thought, why don't we have him be the narrator and have Claire Danes be the voice of O'Keeffe? And it was funny. So the same day they have different agents. We
Uh-huh.
sent, contacts, sent information to the agents for both of them. And, it's always a lot of back and forth. And documentary filmmakers, you're pretty easy to ignore. I'll just say that. Uh, you know, but Dancy's agent was a little more forthcoming, got in touch with us. Eventually, Claire Danes' agent got in touch,
Mhm.
but it was moving very slow with Claire Danes. She didn't seem to be very interested. And we eventually did set up the narration recording in New York. We go up to
Mhm.
New York, record the narration with Hugh Dancy. About an hour after we finished that session, we get a call from Claire Danes' agent. Claire would like to consider this, and suddenly it got
Mhm.
real. So our theory is, Hugh went home and told Claire, okay, they're documentary filmmakers, but they're not in total idiots. It would be
Mhm.
okay to do this project with them.
Yeah.
So it kind of worked out, and it's kind of cool to have, the fact that they're married.
I
You know,
think that creates a chemistry that is there.
yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
it works together. We like both those performances, and so I'll say this: the tone is right. I think
Yes, yes.
for both of them.
And I'm sure that has something to do with them being an actual.
Maybe, yeah, who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
it was a little angle that helped us
I love
to
that.
get
Yeah.
her involved on the project.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, I think they were perfect choices.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Do you also teach?
Yeah, that's been kind of a sideline, teaching part-time. It's really fun for me working with the students, and kind of a nice balance. It kind of allows you to be a doer, but also a thinker,
Hmm?
because you do something all day, every day for 50 years, and then suddenly you have to explain it to somebody else.
The
And it's
best way. Yeah.
good. It's good. It really helps you think more deeply about, well, what have I been doing all this time, or how do I approach
Hmm.
a given, project? And it's really helped me, I think, on the creative side, and weirdly kind of given me more confidence. You think
Yeah, I
you need
believe
more
that.
confidence after
Well,
all
it
those years.
validates it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. It sort of validates. And suddenly I find myself talking about my work in ways that I don't think I'd ever even actually thought about it
Right,
until
right.
that moment. I
Yeah.
open, a student asks a question, and just the issue, for example, of connecting emotionally with the film that you're making,
Hmm.
which is something that you don't really talk about that much. You just do the film, but students, this is the first time they've got it. They feel strongly about something, and
Hmm.
they want to make a film about it, and so you're immediately drawn to this subject of kind of your personal passion and commitment for telling a particular story in film.
Mhm.
And that's been exciting for me just over the last few years. And I feel like I've discovered something about filmmaking and about myself as a filmmaker that I didn't really know or wasn't really aware of.
Yeah, you're back in Santa Fe. Uh, this is well, not your second time. The first time you were
We've
here
been
was
several times, yeah, between the research and filming and consulting with the George O'Keeffe Museum, of course, there in Santa Fe. We spent a lot of time there, and of course, filming in northern New Mexico around Abiquiu.
and you went to Abiquiu, Ghost Ranch.
Yep. Incredibly, the museum, I mean, they did so much for us.
Right.
First of all, providing access to her artwork. The O'Keeffe Museum controls the copyright on 90-some% of her art.
Great.
And they have this unbelievable archive of photos and information about George O'Keeffe. But then they also own the two houses, the one in the town of Abiquiu and the one at Ghost Ranch. And they so kindly allowed us to film in both those houses. Amazingly, in the Ghost Ranch house, which is not even open to the public, they allowed us to come in a couple of days.
Wow. Oh, that's such a special.
It was so
Yeah.
exciting. You know,
That's
you
worth
just
making the documentary just so you can get into.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
just, just the thrill of being there.
Hmm.
People have been, I know a lot of people who are hearing this have been to her house in Abiquiu.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and it's thrilling, just to be, you feel like you're in her presence. There's
Right.
so much of her personality in the house itself that you just feel like you're there with George
I haven't
O'Keeffe.
been yet. I really would.
Gotta do that.
Gotta
Gotta do.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the museum is right in town.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
been
an
to-
incredible resource. Just one of the great museums in the country, and one of the few museums dedicated to a particular artist, and I think the only one dedicated to it, maybe in the world, dedicated to a woman artist, a single woman artist. So it's an incredible resource for us as filmmakers and for the community.
Yes. So tell me what it was like working with the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. Did you just reach out to them? Did you know someone there? Like for the filmmakers out there that are like, I love a
Yeah,
person and I want to make a documentary. Like, what are some
yeah.
steps you took?
Well, there's a mantra for documentary filmmakers I've heard for years, which is uh, access is everything.
Right.
In other words, yes, it's nice to have a big budget. Yes, it's nice to be a talented filmmaker, but really the success of the film hinges on having access to the subject matter. And in our case, when we got excited about the idea of making a film, um, basically we thought we need to establish trust with all the experts, all the art historians and biographers
Sure.
who are part of the O'Keeffe world, if you will. We had, because we're coming in from out of left field, they don't know who we are, and these are people who love and have committed their lives to George O'Keeffe. And now some filmmaker saying, "Oh, we want to make a film about her." They're like, "Who are you? What makes you think you could?"
Right,
There's a
right.
credibility issue and a trust issue you have to build. This is true of all documentary films. And then, so it's the experts, and then it's the museum,
Mhm.
because they own the art and they rightly, protect her legacy and her
Yes.
reputation. So, but the amazing thing was from the get-go, they were very welcoming and very generous with their time, with their resources, and with their trust in us as filmmakers. So we had total creative control. They agreed to support what we were doing. And it's been a fabulous working relationship. And in fact, Cody Hartley, who's the director of the museum, will be on the panel with us Saturday night tonight at the premiere of the film.
Oh, great. I
Yeah,
think it's a testament to Santa Fe supports art and Santa Fe supports
exactly.
film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I kind of knew that, but now I really know it.
Mhm.
After working with the museum and just spending more time in Santa Fe, it's not a surprise
Right.
that they've embraced this enterprise of making a film about her.
Sure.
So it's really been exciting.
So,
fun for them. I think one of the cool things is we've been able, as filmmakers, we've turned up a few things that even the museum was not aware of. For example, we found some footage, an interview with O'Keeffe that was shot in 1964 that had not been seen since 1964.
where did you
And
find it?
it's amazing. Well, my wife, Ellen, sort of stumbled on it reading the fine print of a description of materials at the Museum of Modern Art. The Museum of Modern Art has a huge film archive, so huge they don't exactly know what's there, I think.
Yeah.
And so this was unknown way down in the fine print in the
Wow.
description of a collection. She saw a reference to O'Keeffe. We started looking into it, and here was this unbelievable interview footage with O'Keeffe. And you know how people say, oh, George O'Keeffe always wore black and never wore makeup. Okay, we've got an interview with her in a turquoise dress with red lipstick and black eyeliner.
Oh,
I mean, it's
wow.
unbelievable, you know,
Yeah.
this idea that she never wore makeup. She never wore, well, actually she did for at least for she sat for this one interview. And not only that, but most of the interviews that you see, if you go on YouTube, there are a zillion, you know, kind of YouTube like clips of her, and almost all of them are taken from the really great 1977 film. And she is great in it, but she was an older woman at that point. She's
Mhm.
much younger in 64. And so she comes across a little more vibrantly and in kind of a more interesting way. So that was a really exciting discovery. And, you know, it just gives you a different dimension of her as an artist and as a woman.
Mhm. Any other surprises you found along the way or things that
Uh,
were new to you?
yeah, there were. I mean, one of the things is, you know, everybody has a certain sense of an artist. And, you know, she was so strong as a woman, so articulate as an artist. You tend to have this, you know, and kind of really an icon, and literally an American icon
Mm.
as an artist, as a woman. So you think, wow, she's so powerful. It all must have come easily for her, you know, her art, her life. But when you get into it and when you look at these letters that are very intimate and personal, you realize the level of struggle that she faced. I
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, she had not, there was a time when she was in her early 20s when she stopped painting for 4 years.
Right.
Well, also in late 1932, she had a terrible emotional problems and what we would probably describe today as a nervous breakdown late in 1932. For all of 1933, she did not paint at all. She was really in a deeply depressed state. And finally, at the very end of 33, she comes out of it and resumes painting again. And so the level of intimacy that you're given through the reading the letters, hearing Claire Danes read them, it kind of opens a door on her as an artist that makes it much more personal. And you realize she was, you know, yes, she was amazing and powerful, but she was also vulnerable and flawed, as every human being is. And
Mhm.
that her life, you know, despite all her success, was also had elements of struggle that were really challenging for her. And to me, that makes her a more of a human being in the way that we were able to present her in the film. I mean, one of the things, for example, everybody loves her art, and she was very prolific. But in 1952, in November, she burned 40 of her paintings. Now, just imagine Georgia O'Keeffe goes into her storeroom, picks up 40 paintings, and she actually cut out the canvas all out of the frames and burned those paintings. And the reason she did it, not out of some weird psychological quirk, but she was so demanding about the quality of her work that
Mhm.
she looked at those paintings that she had done over a period of years and went, you know what? That one's just not up to snuff. I'm not satisfied with that one. And that was how rigorous and tough-minded she was about her art. And it kind of shows her vulnerability. She didn't want crappy art out there,
Out
you know.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, she was that, you know, determined to you know, present herself to the world as the artist that she was.
We can't wait to have you and the panel discussion moderated by Paul Barnes and who from
Yeah,
the
so I'll tell you,
Joe.
I'll be on it. Also, Cody Hartley, who's the director of the George O'Keeffe Museum, and one of the interviewees in the film, Beth Turner, who's an art historian,
Oh, great.
on the
Okay.
panel. Then actually on Sunday at the History Museum, Agapita Judy Lopez, she goes by PETA, who was actually George O'Keeffe's assistant, personal assistant
Wow. Okay.
for the last several years of her life, will be on the panel. She's amazing.
Oh,
These, with who knew O'Keeffe personally, and she also she is kind of the caretaker, if you will, of the O'Keeffe homes. She
Bill?
administers, yes, she
Oh,
administers
wow.
the O'Keeffe home in Abiquiu and the Ghost Ranch house.
Oh
So
my
she
God.
knew O'Keeffe
Uh-huh.
intimately, and also has stayed connected and is kind of the person most responsible for presenting O'Keeffe as a woman in a personal way to the public. So she's an
Wow.
amazing resource. She'll be great. Cody will be great
Yeah.
tonight on
That's true.
Saturday, and then
Yeah.
on Sunday, PETA will be there too.
This is why I love film festivals is,
Oh yeah,
not just the film, you get all these like insider access, as you were talking about,
exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah. No, it's so rewarding.
cool.
Just as a filmmaker, it's so rewarding. We've been working on this 5 years,
Oh,
you know,
wow. Okay.
just deeply involved in, and I'm not complaining. It's been
Yeah,
fabulous,
yeah, I can tell.
spending time in Santa Fe and New Mexico and traveling to other places she lived. And I just love the editing and the filming, especially the editing process, just being immersed in it. It's fabulous. But there is the payoff of showing it to an audience. You just can't beat it. And to sit, it's always sort of wonderful and horrible, to sit something that you've watched hundreds of times over years. Suddenly, you're seeing it like it with all new eyes because you're sitting in an audience
Yeah.
with hundreds of other people and they're reacting, and you can just in your gut, you're like, oh my gosh, they weren't supposed to laugh there. Why are they laughing there? And
Right,
oh my
right.
gosh, that's so moving. I never thought of that as someone, so you're sort of reliving experiencing the film in this whole new way, a film that you think intimately, but now you're feeling it through the vibes of the audience. It's really a great payoff. So we're the world premiere is this weekend in Santa Fe, but then in a couple of weeks we're going to be showing it here in our hometown, Charlottesville, at
Oh,
the
great.
Virginia Film Festival.
Okay.
And that has its own joys, where all
Sure.
our friends here in town will come in and watch it. Also, I teach screenwriting and film directing at the University of Virginia, so we're kind of part of the local film community here.
Right. Do you plan to screen it in other locations that you filmed it?
Yeah, I mean,
That are-
sort of the life of the film, what we project is um, we want to show it in art museums. That's sort
That's
of
what I was going to ask you about that. I think
yeah. And
that's so brilliant.
we're
Mhm.
starting to arrange those screenings now. We're going to show it at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, for example. And we're reaching out to art museums around the country. And that's sort of the natural audience. And then we have a representative who will, try to set up broadcast and streaming deals. That's sort of where, documentary films go these days. It's not like it won't have a theatrical commercial run.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, we might look into that, but that's kind of a long shot, and it's great for promoting the film, but it's not like it's a source of income or anything, and not that many people see it. Where people will see it is on streaming and
Mhm.
on broadcast in terms of sort of the numbers of people and people overseas in Europe, for example. Her reputation is really just starting to explode there.
Yeah, I got to that. I'm about halfway through the film. I'd like to like take it slow and give it like a
Sure, yeah, yeah.
watch. And I saw I was surprised to learn that, she's not quite as well known in
Oh
Europe
no, exactly.
as here.
Yeah. I mean, there's a historical reason for that. Stieglitz, was her agent, as it
Mhm.
were, and he did not sell her art or promote it in Europe.
Hmm.
It's a complicated story why, but basically she was not that well known. And so even today, there's not a lot of her art in European art museums, for example, or in private collections. Almost, she was very prolific, but almost all that art is in the United States. You know, we've been making these films for a lot of years and just seeing the technology change. And there's always good things and not so good things as each new wave of technology comes in. And I think that's where we are now. It's wonderful to have access to so many films and terrific television, which
Sure.
was never the case, for
Yeah,
years.
right. I know.
That's all great, but the kind of the shrinking of the theatrical experience,
Mhm.
it's troubling, I think, to see that dissipate.
Right. I mean, they come out too fast on streaming. I think
Oh my
if
gosh.
they didn't come
Well,
out so fast, maybe we'd see them more in the theater.
yeah. Well, we just went to see Megalopolis, which
Uh,
the Coppola film, and
yeah.
is kind of not controversial, but I mean, some people like it, some people think it's not great.
Mhm.
But it was fabulous. I love the experience of sitting in a theater and watching it. Sort of
Mhm.
apart from what I felt about it critically, it was
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
great to sit in a theater
Right.
and see it on a big screen. It was
Certain things
that
should be
quiet.
seen. Yeah.
Yeah,
In the
and you
biggest,
realize it wouldn't be half as great an experience to watch it on even on a big screen in your living room. So
or much less an iPad or
yeah,
my
exactly.
phone. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we've seen over our career, we've just seen so many technological changes. We were involved in mostly we've done documentaries, but we did one narrative feature film called Windhorse. And it was the first feature film shot on digital cameras that we shot in 96, I guess that was.
mhm.
And, you know, as new technology has come along, we've tried to kind of pick and choose what we would use of the new things. And that was a case where, digital technology just allowed us to do things that could not have been done. In that case, we actually filmed a lot of the film secretly inside China. It's set in Tibet. And so we snuck into China with cameras that looked like amateur cameras, but were actually, digital and therefore pretty good quality, and we're able to film scenes, secretly, as it were, even though we were in public spaces that were scenes that
Cool.
were used in the film eventually. So
And
that's
it made it more affordable and democratized
exactly,
making.
exactly.
So there's so many good things about it. I think we're about out of time. Any parting thoughts or
Well, I'm
words of
so
words of wisdom?
yeah. Oh gosh, follow your dreams, follow your passions. I know I don't have to say that in Santa Fe. It's such a creative community, and more recently, such a creative filmmaking community. So
Sure.
many great filmmakers who are based there and who are being drawn to Santa Fe as a great place, and New Mexico generally, of course, is a great place to make films. So you don't need me, an outsider from Virginia, to tell you how lucky you are and to how creative you are. I'll just say we're thrilled to be able to premiere the film there with people who I think understand not just Georgia O'Keeffe, but understand who we are as filmmakers and as creative artists. So it's the perfect festival and the perfect place for us to show the film.
It is. There's no better place. And I think it's going to be really well received. Based on what I've seen, I'm completely hooked and I've learned some new things about Georgia O'Keeffe and already. And how many days are you going to be at the festival? You and yeah.
Well, we're going to be in the area for about 5 days.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of days at the festival, and then we're going to be hanging out with some of our friends at the museum and in Abiquiu for a
Oh,
couple more.
cool. Okay. So be sure to say hi to Paul and Ellen
Oh
if you
yeah.
see them. And just one more reminder, the screening is Saturday, 10/19 tonight, 7:30 at the CCA Cinema. And then tomorrow, Sunday, the 20th, 1 p.m. at the New Mexico History Museum, both with Q&As with different guests on the panel. And how can we reach you? What's your website?
Oh yeah, I should mention we have a website now, GeorgiaO'KeeffeFilm.com.
Okay,
There's no apostrophe because you can't do that in a
can't do that
URL,
yet. One
but
day.
it's GeorgiaO'KeeffeFilm.com, and there's a ton of information about the film, about O'Keeffe, about her art, her life, and
There's a
everything. And the
trailer.
trailer.
Yeah, it's great. I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited. Yeah, no, it's gonna be awesome. Yeah, there's no better place. Thanks for joining us, and I can't wait to meet you in person and see you at the festival.